Welcome to the Disability Myth, the podcast where we explore the realities of disability with handsomeness, humility, and hamminess. My name's Dominic, and I was born with a fatal neuromuscular condition called spinal muscular atrophy. My co-host, Uriel, and I tackle serious issues, but we don't take ourselves too seriously.
SMA and boats. How did that go?
SMA and boats?
Yeah.
I mean, you think about it, boats are just not as wheelchairs. We're here to share stories, break down barriers, and remind everyone that we're not so different. So hit subscribe and let's shed light on some myths. Heyo, and welcome back to another episode of the Disability Myth. I am, of course, your handsome, your humble, your hammy host, Avril Lavigne.
Avril Lavigne.
Yeah, I'm deciding to go Avril Lavigne today.
Oh, Avril Lavigne. I'll be Stephen King.
Oh, big fan of your work.
Oh, I thank you, thank you, thank you. You probably remember my works, Cujo.
You got that dog in you.
It,
Yep.
I believe. Several other horror film books that I can't remember. Hi, Uriel and Dominic
Yep.
Trevathan.
My real name is Dominic Trevathan, if you didn't
Yeah,
know by now.
back in the saddle again.
Back in the saddle. So, today we have another new friend joining us, Michael Pereira, founder of the Autism Voyage. So, Michael, welcome on. And yeah, let's just get into it. What is the Autism Voyage?
No, thank you first of all for the opportunity. Well, the Autism Voyage is a blog. It's a newsletter that basically serves families that are either pre-diagnosis or post-diagnosis of any. Obviously, the title says Autism Voyage, but obviously we know as parents when having a child diagnosed with autism, it could also cross over to ADHD or, sometimes it comes with other um I would say conditions that might complement, I would say, if you will. But it's a blog that again just covers different type of topics any parent would go through and wants see are seeking information that they might not find it just going to Google, right? So in basically in high level that's it.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. I was really excited when you reached out to me to get this opportunity to talk to you, to someone that is kind of, I think like we are trying to do, bridge the gap between, you know, the disabled community and the non-disabled community. Like that's the whole point of what we do, or one of the main points is we want to inform people, we want to share resources.
Yeah.
And I think it's awesome what you do. I think it's a huge resource for a lot in the disability community.
Hmm.
And yeah, overall, I think just it's gonna be a really fun episode. Yeah.
I think so. I think so too.
And with that, let's jump into our icebreakers. Let's have a little fun before we get all serious.
I knew you would ask this eventually.
This
It's been plaguing the internet for a couple weeks.
yeah.
But
Yeah, this question has been circulating internet. It's been all over my Instagram feeds, all over the online forums, and that is, who do you think would win in a fight? A
Well,
gorilla or 100 men?
I've seen that. I've seen that. I would say the gorilla.
You think
Uh,
so?
yeah, I would say think so because how would you be able to tame a huge, gorilla with so much strength? Even though there is 100 men, but I don't know. I That's a good question, but I would say gorilla. Now, if you have 100 guys and they have guns, and it's different. But
It's a little
in
different.
reality,
that's the
that's
part
a
of the
little different.
question that always pisses me off because like there's no context, no nothing, just
Yeah,
100
nothing.
dudes and a gorilla. Like what's the environment? I
Correct.
don't. Maybe I'm too like
No,
what's
no.
the environment? Where's the content? Or like really nerdy about it. But I'm like I don't know. Like if it's in a small confined room, yeah, no shit, they're all gonna die. It's like a gorilla. I'm like yeah.
I would say the gorilla.
Okay. I don't know. I'm team man. I,
Oh
I,
yeah,
I think I think 100 men between one of them, they'd be able to outsmart it somehow and
I
gain
don't
the
know.
advantage, if nothing else. I don't know.
yeah. I don't know. I don't know.
I
I'm
I
Team
got
Gorilla.
into a long debate with a friend about this because I have seen a gorilla skeleton
Okay.
and I've seen all the muscle attachments.
Okay.
No matter how hard I trained, no matter how hard I could throw a punch,
Yeah,
I guarantee I'll do nothing to it.
yeah.
Like
Me
straight
too.
up.
Yep,
Like because they're nothing but like muscle.
yep.
It'd be equivalent to like punching like a punching bag and like the punching bag doesn't move. Like we underestimate like how dense their bones and like their muscles are. It's like I don't think I don't think I'll even bruise it.
Yeah, I
So that's
think so.
kind of crazy.
Hmm.
Yep.
All right. Well, this next one's yours. This is all yours. It's your baby.
Oh, the hot dog question? Oh, well, we were just talking about being more concise. Maybe maybe leave out the wizard part and all that
No, the
stuff.
wizard part is what makes
Oh
it
my
so good.
gosh. Okay. But it always confuses people. So, you're being held at gunpoint by a wizard.
Hmm.
Okay, and he says, I'm gonna turn you into a hot dog. What kind of hot dog would you like to be?
What kind? Oh, there's different type of hot dogs. Okay, I
Well,
don't know.
because you could, don't laugh. The meat. You
That's
could
a
choose the
question.
meat option, the
Yeah, I
bun,
wouldn't have.
condiments.
Yeah, I wouldn't have that answer because I don't know what would I'd like to be, but what would you choose?
Me, probably a Chicago dog, I think. I don't know. I've
Yeah,
never had
I
one.
think you've said that before.
I've never had one, so
Okay, okay, yeah, I wouldn't know that one, but it's a good question. Huh? Nobody's never.
it's
Okay, so I think the the science behind this question is it relies heavily on the person being asked the question. It assumes that they eat hot dogs
Okay,
and
I
like hot
don't.
dogs.
No, I don't.
So so what
We
do you
And what do I eat? Okay, I'm just, we are in our household. We come from the Caribbean, so I'm come from Puerto Rico. My wife comes from Cuba. So we're always eating Hispanic food, rice, beans, uh, steak, plantains. So that's our main thing here in the house.
those are
That
all
No.
pretty
sounds
good.
so
Yeah,
good, yeah.
I haven't had a fried plantain in a hot minute.
Oh,
Is there
that's
multiple types of plantains? I
Dude,
don't know.
it's crazy.
I yeah, but that's what we eat it almost every day. So that's something that for us is like it's a routine almost.
So the wizard is from Cuba, and
Okay.
he's holding you at gunpoint still, except this time he's asking you what type of Cuban dish you would like to be turned into.
Okay.
Oh,
Okay.
those are good.
That's
That's
a
have
good
a
one. Well, there's one called ropa vieja, which is a really, really good Cuban meal. I would say that one.
Okay, so wait, what is it? I've never heard of it.
Well, it's rice, beans. It has its own like mixture with pork and plantain. So it's what we eat every day basically here.
Okay,
oh, pretty good.
very cool, very cool.
Yeah,
Yeah.
dude, I can relate to the rice and beans every day.
Oh yeah.
What is it? You're always talking about like you like the peasant's meal of like stew and rice and beans.
That's all I eat. Yeah, it's just like the other day it was like super hot. My mom did the stereotypical thing that people talk about. She made fucking almondigues, like meatball soup. I'm like, oh man, but it was like 90 today, mom. It's just like, oh, whatever. It's just like, why? It's like, oh, wait, I ate it though. It's good. Rice
I
beans.
wouldn't say no to some albondigas.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah. Yep. That's all me.
All right, so final icebreaker. If you could go back in time and
Mhm.
give a piece of advice to your younger self, what would it be?
Oh, that's a good one. There's a quote that I love from the formal CEO of IBM, Jenny Rometty, that there it says growth and comfort cannot coexist. So I would say that because it's very difficult if you want to grow to feel comfortable and the same thing, the opposite, right? You cannot be comfortable and expect growth, right? So they cannot coexist. For me, I would go back and at that time I was starting in corporate or whatever, just say that to myself, I cannot expect the perfect life with the perfect results without sacrificing something. So I would say that.
That's a really good, solid answer.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think really, really relevant too because I don't know. Dominic and I are critical thinkers, and I feel like critical thinking and like analyzing new stuff constantly is like really hard to do. And one could say makes you uncomfortable. It makes me
Yeah.
uncomfortable at times because it's like you're reading stuff or like actively seeking things that challenge your worldview
Yeah.
or like make you uncomfortable. So it's like, oh, I don't know, but it's like, it's pretty good. It's going to go to physical activity, gym, whatever, anything new, like a new job, for example, getting used to the workflow, whatever. Like you have to sacrifice some like habits prior that you were used to doing.
Yeah.
Instead of like waking up at like 10 in the morning, you have to wake up at 8 to show up to the office at 9, like that's a sacrifice,
Yeah.
because you're doing something different and it's uncomfortable. I'm like, I'm not used to it.
Okay.
Yeah.
100%.
So
Pretty good.
let's go back to the autism voyage.
Oh, yes.
What, you know, how did it all start? What motivated you?
Well, my son was diagnosed with autism a couple of years ago, and obviously, long story short, I was in corporate America. A lot of things happened throughout that phase, from denial, from ego getting into the way, from my side, not knowing where to go. I would say to without not knowing where to go, even though I have family, but at some point I wanted something that was not family to talk to or to read about. So I couldn't find a blog that was updated. All the blogs I saw at that moment was like 8 years old, 7 years old. So even though it was good information, but I couldn't find something updated. So that was frustrating. I couldn't find a financial advisor or a planner that if I wanted to talk about my financial situation, it seemed like every time I was talking to somebody, very transactional, just wanted to sell me something or recruit me. Very difficult conversations because I wanted to have those that, when I'm seeking an advisor or anybody, I'm trying to see if they can help me, think outside the box and tell me where should I watch out, what should I watch out for, what not. And when you're having somebody that is just seeking a sale, it's very difficult. So I became again frustrated with that. The fact that I was in corporate, started to look for other jobs, other employers to see if I can do the same, travel less because I was traveling a lot. It became difficult because I would go to a startup and uh, you go in a startup, you go in doing one thing, but you're doing other things because you need to, it's a startup. You need to use different hats. So long story short, become very frustrated with a lot of areas, and my head wasn't in the right place. I would say it was in a very dark moment, and just decided to part ways from the corporate world for some time and be able to go into the financial services to see if I can help families like mine and also create a blog because I do truly believe in education first and gaining trust. So the blog just right now this Sunday we crossed over 60 articles. By the end of the year we should be in 100. So we want to provide value first, gain that trust, and whenever a parent is ready to talk about their finances, well then they can schedule something with us.
That's awesome.
Yeah, you touched on a couple of important points that I'm pretty sure I've experienced and Dominic has experienced, and that is this selling or almost like this like corporate like salesman kind of like
Gatekeeping information.
yes, yeah, where and it affects so many Americans. And like when I was trying to like, and they're so predatory, like they don't want you to think, they just want you to sign up for whatever.
Yeah.
And like it's extremely difficult, especially when navigating health insurance, auto insurance. And these people just tend to tell you what you want to hear. And it's not
Mhm.
necessarily coming from a place of like benevolency. They just want to make the sale.
Yeah.
And it's like really frustrating. So I think like
Yeah,
you
because
experiencing that and wanting to like change it up a bit. I'm like, oh, this ain't right. which is
Yeah,
like,
this ain't right. And not only that, I would say this is when we talk about, I would say, my point of view, not necessarily anybody who needs to agree with me, but when we're talking about, I obviously I say special needs. There's people that say neurodivergent, autism. Every month there's a new word. But for me, let's use special needs. Anytime you talk about special needs, that conversation needs to be comprehensive. It cannot just be a one conversation, let's close, right? Why? Because a lot of the conversations, I would say, needs to link with another professional. For example, it's not only just, in my case, buying an insurance policy from me. I suggest you need to talk with a lawyer. Why? Because if there is a disabled, a child who's disabled or might need care beyond his childhood, now he's an adult, you need to have that lawyer, see your scenario, see if you have a special needs trust, see if there's guardianship, power of attorneys, medical agents. If you don't have any assets, we'll use life insurance to be able to fund all that. So now you're talking that there's two professionals. There's the insurance agent and there's the lawyer. Then also have a good accountant because you want to make sure that those assets or whatever inheritance you are leaving doesn't impact from a tax perspective to whoever's receiving that inheritance. So you want to make sure that these conversations, you need to create your own A team. So I truly believe in having a comprehensive approach towards everything we do, even from a therapy standpoint. We have the behavior analyst, we have the technician, that's a team. And we're always talking about the therapy, the plan. Is it working? Is it not working? And so forth. So if you're talking with somebody that is very transactional and doesn't have experience talking about, or even talking with the lawyer with you, you're talking about the amount of insurance you need or whatnot, you know, it's difficult. You want to have that approach. Like, for example, I've had clients that said, "Hey, I already have a policy." I say, "Perfect. Now, one question. That means you're proactive. Obviously, we kudos for you, but does your current policy also consider your guardian?" And they're like, "What do you mean?" Well, because if you took a policy and okay, perfect, but if, for example, I don't know, my brother needs to assume responsibility now for Christian because Ellie, my wife, and myself, we pass away, and he needs to become a caregiver. He needs some income. Right. So does that policy also consider providing income for the caregiver who's assuming responsibility for that child or that loved one? It's not just leaving only for the child. You want to make sure that whoever's taking care of him is also getting obviously some sort of income. So that's the type of conversation I think that any parent should consider. It's very hard, it's hard conversations, hard questions because you need to make decisions into an uncertain future. But that's why you want to have these conversations because you're thinking about different type of scenarios, right? Like for example, in my case, if I pass away, we have a plan. If my wife and myself pass away, we have a plan. If only my wife passes away, my mom, at the end of the day, she's the best grandmother. She cooks amazing, but physically, she cannot take care of him because if he's on top of the chairs, the sofa, you know, physically, she might not be able to get him out. And so you want to have those hard conversations and develop a plan, and everything starts with a conversation. But you need to understand that this is not transactional. So I hope it wasn't a long answer, but at least that's the way I
No, I know I appreciate it because it's I think you highlighted something that's very important that many people are seeking, but a lot of these places don't provide. And
Mm,
that is that conversation, that person to person interaction. Like don't make it transactional. Like I have genuine questions about health insurance, like my own health, which is
Mhm.
like nothing to play with. And
Mhm.
the other person on the other end is like, "Oh yeah, that's a good policy, sure." Like, is it though? You know what I mean, right? And
Yeah,
like I've had those conversations before. I've dealt with health insurance before, but those are genuine
yeah, yeah.
concerns, and I think
And also, you want to make sure, hey, if you have an agent in front of you, say, hey, based on my profile, what's the best practice? Like, what should I be doing right now that I'm not doing?
Right.
You want to ask them, and then for them tell you, well, based on what I see here and based on your family, I would suggest this. And not necessarily you need to go into the conversation to commit to something, right? Just
Right.
have the conversation so you can at least in your mind have that roadmap, or you may not have the money now, right? But at least you say, okay, maybe I can get this now. Later on, I can do this. But again, it's a conversation, and you
Yeah.
need to ask that professional, hey, based on my profile, what do you suggest I should do right now? And then
Mhm.
compare with your own knowledge, right? That's
Yeah.
what I
That's
would suggest.
No, yeah, I
that's
agree. Yeah.
that's interesting. And I think what I appreciate most about everything you just said as a person with a disability is the fact that it isn't lost on you, like the sense of a holistic kind of communal approach. Like it's not just you and your wife taking care of Christian. It's a group effort. It's, therapists, it's your other family members. It's, taking into account the attorney and like lawyers and like insurers. Like I think that often gets lost on a lot of people, disabled or not.
Yeah,
The
Yeah.
fact that it sometimes takes like a a village, right?
yeah.
Yeah.
And that's not a bad thing. Like having
No,
more people in your corner is a good thing, in my
Yeah.
opinion.
I feel maybe you could relate to this, but I feel like a lot of disabled people, at least in our experience, are very discouraged to go out and like do this stuff because of how complicated, how difficult it is, and how
Hmm.
like at times transactional it is. It's almost kind of like it's quite, oh, how do I put it? Daunting.
Yeah.
Like it's overwhelming the amount of like because you have to think about your caretaking, your primary caregiver, like all these
you
things, you know?
I just look at it like this, like
Yeah.
being a person with a disability, you can feel very isolated,
Mhm.
Mhm.
very different.
Yeah,
But like for Christian to have someone like yourself in his life that's, actively showing him, these are all the people that we have in your corner.
yeah.
Mhm.
And like
That's
this is all that we are doing just, for you, right? That's really cool.
Okay.
thank you, thank you. But I do believe that any family should be doing that,
Yeah.
Yeah.
any family. But obviously, there is a lot of people that think they can do it themselves or think about different. But I believe that that type of approach should be there because at the end of the day, you want to plan for the future that you don't know what will happen. And not only for the child, but for example, in my case, we don't know. Even though Christian is highly functional, he's still not conversational, but highly functional. We believe that he might be, we're working on it for him to be independent, but we don't know, right? And that's the uncertainty we need to live with. But for example, what if I need care when I'm 80, 85, and he's 40 and he still, needs support? Assisting living facilities, nursing homes are becoming very expensive. How am I going to pay for my own help? So when we talk about, okay, having based on your, like I mentioned, if you ask agent based on my profile, what do you recommend? What's the best practice? Those are all the areas that the advisor needs to tackle. Short term, if you need disability income insurance. Midterm, okay, let's use a life insurance to fund a special needs trust, for example. Long term, okay, let's use some coverage, standalone coverage or something to be able to accumulate cash to be able to pay out later on that type of service that you might need that your son or daughter may not be able to help you with, right? So it's having a conversation not only around the loved one with a disability or not non-disabled, but just the full family, the whole family needs to have that, planning there.
Yeah.
And then I know this is, I'm backtracking a little bit, but there's like there's the insurance point, and then there's another point that you said, when you were working in corporate, did you find it overly difficult to strike that workplace balance and like you wanted
That
uh
doesn't exist. I don't think it exists, that workplace balance, the work and
okay.
balance. I don't think so because even more when you have a child who's taking 20, 28 hours of therapy a week,
Yeah.
it's difficult being able to have a 9 to 5. And even more when I was traveling, my wife was overwhelmed with a lot of hours of therapy. So that balance there that everybody talks about, I think that it's I don't know where they get it from, right? Because even being in corporate, when you travel, you're it's very difficult to find balance, right? Because even in the hotel, you're answering emails.
Mm.
Even in the airplane, you're working. So even on the weekends, you're thinking about work. So really, you didn't disconnect. So in my case, I think I just adjusted a lot to the environment until obviously this curveball came by that for me, I thought that at that point in corporate, I was living the American dream. But in reality, I was living a lie. At the end of the day, I think that we're living the American dream now. We are completely blessed to be able to have both children, Christian, and Amanda and my wife here at home. And this is for us the true American dream, being able to support the children and be a support system for them. That for us is truly the American dream.
Was such a cool thing to hear.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I was like, mainly I was like interested if like you were so overworked that like you said you had to adapt with Christian and like you had to step away from that corporate because it's like, no, I can't not necessarily keep I was like it was really difficult
No,
to
I
like
think it was more I stepped not it what the pressure is always going to be there in any job, right? But I
mhm,
think the decision why I left is because something that doesn't return in life is time. So if
mm,
I can do the time now with him in these early years and help him in whatever I can, I will prefer that 1,000 times over just being in a board meeting that, nobody's going to remember me in 5 years from now. So
mm,
for that's why the main reason, because I felt that the presence here in home, and even more after, I think that he got used to me being home during COVID because I didn't travel, that when I started traveling again in COVID, that transition period for him was tough.
Hmm.
So that stayed with me until a couple for some time. I just did everything I could so I can just be here and do what I'm doing now.
Yeah.
understood. See, respectfully, really good.
Yeah.
Yes, yeah.
So, okay, I want to just backtrack a little bit. Like Uriel said earlier, um, you talked about the diagnosis, and there was a lot of emotions in that process, denial. Can you just kind of talk more about that? Like, what was the initial conversation with the doctors like?
No, I think that not the doctors. I think that us as parents, you know, when there's symptoms there that are not, you know, on your usual day to day. So prior going to the doctor, you can tell when there's something there that needs to be addressed. So in our case, around 1 year old, he started doing, tiptoeing, aligning stuff. A lot of behaviors that we knew at that point that weren't normal for us. And the way any parent, I would say, because a parent can come and say, "Hey, but my son does that," and that's, the way I see it now. If your son or daughter is doing a behavior that harms them, that's where you get concerned, right? Because if they're doing a behavior that they might have gotten from daycare or imitating somebody from school, you know, just deep dive and make sure that that's not a behavior that comes with, obviously, with what we're talking about now. They might be imitating something or somebody they see, even a cartoon, right? But when you
Mm.
start seeing behaviors that impact his day to day, it harms him. That's where I really think the red flag is for somebody to just go out and seek professional help. right? And it's not, and when I say professional help, it's not family because in our case, you can have family that in our case, for example, when we start seeing symptoms, a lot of families will say, "Hey, don't worry, you were the same. Just give it time." You know, in the Hispanic environment, there's la chancleta, the sandal. So that un chancletazo would be like, give him a sandal or
Yeah, that's
so,
yeah, mental health in the Hispanic, especially Hispanic
yeah, yeah.
American community is quite the uphill battle.
Yeah.
Yeah, so in
Póntelo
that,
las pilas. I'm like,
yeah.
when I was your age, I was like 30 acres, and I'm like, all right, dad. It's like, it's like, I
So
walk 10 miles to school every day. It's like,
have that.
like that stereotypical stuff. It's just like, yeah,
Yeah,
I
yeah,
feel
you
that.
have that. And at the end of the day, when you have a family that gives you that type of advice, you gotta make sure who you're listening to because that advice came from love, but not experience. And when you have a denial, plus hearing somebody saying that there's nothing wrong, that they not don't even know any type of have any type of experience dealing with this topic, is dangerous because you are making decisions based on that, and that can procrastinate any early intervention, right? So you want to make sure that even though you have family, and that's fine, it doesn't mean that because they're intentional, they have love, they know what they're talking about. So I would just see that if there is any type of behavior that you are seeing that may harm them, or you just have a gut feeling, because you know the gut feeling you need to have, seek a professional. It doesn't matter have that conversation because at the end of the day, it's going to just benefit the child. Now, in regards
Yeah.
to when you mentioned about the emotions and that part, so around 1 year old, again, we started seeing symptoms, and COVID came by, was able to stay here. A lot of the symptoms reduced, but when COVID released, obviously the symptoms came back full force, hitting his head against the wall, again, tiptoeing, aligning stuff. He was saying a couple words, he regressed a couple. You know, it was tough. So we knew that at that point, we got you, right? So we got him diagnosed, and that's where I believe that that denial phase, kicks in because you think that you're again the American dream at that point. You got everything in order, but in reality, it's you need life throws you a curveball and you need to adapt, right? And if you're in denial, and this I say with a lot of respect to parents, but for me, denial, the more you're in denial, just reflects how selfish you are because you're only thinking about yourself. You're only thinking about the way you feel, the way you thought things were going to be. But in reality, you're not helping anybody because you're only thinking about yourself. So after the denial phase, I was able to come into terms. Obviously, ego and everything, just leave everything in God's hands. I just, went into the acceptance phase. And that's where a lot of relief came came with it because I said, okay, now it's formal. Now let's see what can I do to serve not only my son, but have a serving, approach to be able to help families like mine. So that's where I think all the everything since before, but start getting that sense of see how we can do this.
Yeah. No, that's beautifully put. And
Yeah.
I think my follow-up question is like, how would you best advise people in similar circumstances to kind of get from that point of denial to that point of acceptance? Like, what kind of helps ease you into
Yeah.
acceptance?
Just leave your ego behind. Nobody cares. I would say one. Secondly, there's a lot of parents that think that they can do it themselves, that they have all the answers. And in reality, what it looks like that they're going on cruise control, but they're going the wrong way, right? It's about seeking professionals, but I would just say, leave the ego behind and leave the professionals to be able to guide you in all way. Not only professionals from doctors who are or can diagnose, but those therapists that are assigned there to help the child progress, right? There's a lot of parents that I see that they believe that the therapists are nannies, And it's not that. That's your best ally, right? You want to make sure that you're up to speed with the therapy, with the plan, with whatever it's assigned to that child. You want to make sure that you're up to the end, that you're present. But you gotta, it first leaves with, leaving the ego behind and relying on professionals.
Yeah, that's really good advice, I would say.
Yeah, it's also very difficult to do. So
Yeah,
congratulations.
yeah,
No,
This
but
is yeah,
no, no, thank you. But I'm saying this now, but it took me a lot of time
hmm
to
yeah,
be this
yeah,
way. It's not that I woke up one day, started doing push-ups, and okay,
yeah,
now.
yeah.
No.
No, it's yeah.
It took years. It took my wife years. It's not what I'm saying today. That's why I say with all respect, because it takes time. Everybody's different. Everybody reacts different. And in our case, it took some internal battle to be able to come into terms and be with this mindset of understanding that now we need to serve. Now we need to be the best support system. And if I'm going against the wave, I'm just, I'm not being resourceful.
yeah. So we've kind of been talking about, the misconceptions of taking advice from who, and you advise people to be careful who you take advice from.
Yeah.
What are some other common misconceptions or myths regarding, the people that you help, who you talk to, um,
Hmm.
regarding all that stuff? Yeah.
Everybody thinks that they have time. I think, I'll do it later. I'll do it later. Everybody thinks that they have time. And in reality, you never know. So I would say the most common one is that thinking that nothing's going to happen. And what people don't realize is with time is expensive, right? When you wait, for example, in my case, for an insurance policy, the older you get, the more expensive, right? Because the probability of something to happen to you is higher. The same thing with anything in life. If you're waiting to invest in something, it's going to get more expensive. You know, time, if you procrastinate, it, it's tough because it comes with a consequence, and that consequence is that it becomes more expensive, whatever you do. So that's, I would say, it's the biggest thing.
Hmm.
Hopefully, I answered the question.
Yeah. No, totally.
No, yeah, I feel like that response summarizes a lot of those insecurities all in like one thing, where like you were able to tie it back to just like this idea that like, oh, not now, later, tomorrow. I don't
Hmm.
like I feel good now. Like all that, like it's like that idea, like thinking like you could do it whenever, but then whenever turns into like
Hmm.
5 years,
Mhm.
you know? Yeah. Yeah.
It happens a
So
lot.
I like the response. Like it summarized all of that into like one little like
Yeah.
a funnel. It's just like, yeah, nah.
It all kind of connects, yeah.
Yeah.
Um, so when we first met and we're talking, brainstorming topics to talk about here, uh, you had mentioned something that stuck out to me, which was that siblings who are neurotypical don't typically want anything to do with their neurodivergent siblings. Yeah, can you just talk about that idea a little
Yeah.
more? I found that really interesting.
Yeah.
Like,
Like
not typically, because at the end of the day, I haven't seen a statistic for that, but what I can say is
more
that,
anecdotal.
Anecdotal, yeah.
well, yeah, what the thing is, there's a lot of conversations I've had that, that I even have an ebook for that caters to siblings, because they're in some cases the unsung heroes, right? Because they serve a, the majority of the years that sibling needs help. But sometimes they go through their own traumas, right? Because they see there's a different treatment, in the household. They feel left out. They might feel jealous, jealousy. There's a lot of emotions that go there, right? So the ebook that I have in the website just caters to those type of families like mine. Like, for example, Christian is diagnosed, Amanda is not. So we want to make sure that Amanda doesn't feel left out, that Amanda understands, and we try to explain to her, even though she's 3, we explain to her, do you know that Christian has its own unique needs? When eating, when going out, he cannot. At one point, he couldn't hear the dryer in the public bathroom where you dry your hands. He couldn't hear that because of sensory issues. At one point, he couldn't hear the blender in the kitchen because of sensory issues. The haircuts vary. It's a challenge. So even though she's too small, but we still take time to be able to explain things to her because we want her to feel part of everything we do, and for her to understand that if we are doing something different from her, is because there's a unique need that needs to be addressed. And in
Right.
some cases, some families I've spoken to, some siblings feel traumatized, and in some cases don't want to have nothing to do with the family when they grow up. But I just feel that that's something important, right?
Yeah. Oh, that's interesting. I've never, you know, really thought about that sibling dynamic much.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
definitely, yeah,
But
definitely
that
exists.
also helps you as a parent, I think, just be self-aware, of everybody in the household, because the same thing you can have this conversation about the siblings, how they feel, also your spouse, because sometimes we as married, you concentrate so much on the loved one, the child, that you lose focus on yourself, you know.
Mm.
So that can apply also to, I think it's just to be aware of your surroundings and understand that everybody in the household needs to be validated and considered.
Hmm.
Yeah.
I fully agree. Yep, that's definitely something I've experienced.
Yeah.
You as well. Yeah, it's just like, and that's like universal. I know there exists a stereotype, the middle child. All those things. So like these dynamics don't exist. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's like there are definitely
Yeah.
correlations here. So it's like I think it's important to like be self-aware. Yeah, that's very good.
So obviously we've kind of covered a lot here. One of the things I wanted to make sure that we did cover, just because it would seem a disservice to me if we did not,
Mhm.
is, you know, we've talked a lot about Christian and his needs. So how do you kind of foster a environment as a parent where you encourage his like sense of independence while still, caring for him and, protecting him?
Well, we incorporate a lot of activities. Like for example, we have taken away the tablet time for some time, for a while now, and we put him into jujitsu, for him to have activity, for him to be sociable, for him to understand that that he needs discipline, he needs to follow instructions, he needs to dress himself if he wants to go to jujitsu. He needs to ask for help if he needs it. He needs to whatever he can do from his side. We are pro that. So anything, even in the morning, going to school, he needs to dress himself, right? If he's eating, obviously my wife and I cook, but he needs to eat by himself. And whatever he does, we try to incorporate. Now, there's days that obviously if we need to jump in and help, obviously we will. But we try to incorporate. We're not perfect. I'm just normal human, but we're just trying to monitor as much as possible, not only to incorporate that independency to him, but also to Amanda. Like I mentioned, we're trying to also help her not feel that she's a part, but involved. So that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to incorporate activities and do family stuff, so they can see, that they're obviously considered, but feel that they can do it themselves.
Yeah, that's really cool.
Yeah, I think that's really important.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like bestow into a child where it's just like, well, if you really enjoy this stuff, you need to put in the effort to actually like,
Yeah.
You do it, you're just like, oh yeah, I want to go to jujitsu. You do? How badly? I'll get changed.
Yeah,
You
yeah,
know, it's like I think that's adorable, and I think that's like important
yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
because, but
Right
yeah,
now we took him out for a couple of weeks because during that time he's having some therapy, so we cannot take him at that time in the class, but he's returning back in the next month, I would say. But yeah, man, we're trying as much as possible. But again, for those who are listening, it's taking us some time, just patience, be adaptable, learn how to be flexible. There's something that we just when we have conversations, it's not our fault, but it's our responsibility, right? And that we say that a lot. I heard it from a coach, a sales coach, that he would say, "Hey, it's not your fault, but it's your problem." In our case, it's not our problem; it's our responsibility. So we would say it's not our fault that Christian was diagnosed, but it is our responsibility, and we want to take full ownership and accountability in doing what we need to do in order for him to be the best version he can be, right? So even though it's taken us some time, but again, I would just suggest to those parents who may fall in the victim mentality that why me, why this, and why the other, just understand that it's not your fault. So that takes away the victim mentality, but it is your responsibility. So you need to snap out, right? And start getting that ownership in to start building that child that needs you, right? So again, it's taking us some time, but that's the way I think that mindset shift needs to come out.
As
yeah.
as the kiddos say nowadays, that was bars.
Well, yeah. Well, because there's a lot of validity to it, where it's like it goes back to the initial quote where any form of self-improvement, any critical thought, anything new, anything that would benefit you will always be uncomfortable.
Mm,
Yeah,
The communicating with like a loved one, say, oh, like I know we love each other, we've been dating for a while, but like I feel like this.
yeah,
And if you can't respond to that,
yeah,
what do you
100%.
you know what I mean? It's going to be uncomfortable.
yeah,
With with your child being diagnosed in that denial, it's going to be uncomfortable.
yeah,
But I think, like he said, it's not our fault, but it's our responsibility.
yeah.
It's just like, it's like these little intercommunication things that we have with people. It's not necessarily like someone's fault, but it's like a
It's
responsibility to like bridge the gap, be like, okay, what's wrong? Like,
yeah,
we actually have to like work this out. And that's always going to be hard.
yeah. Like you're dealt the cards you dealt, and it's up to you how you choose to play them. So,
Yeah. It's like they say, like, you have the choice on how to respond to it,
mhm.
like your actions.
Yeah,
Like,
Yep, 100%.
yeah. And like someone like even like at times when I beat myself up, somebody told me where it's just like, well, yeah, it's everybody's first time on this planet. That's what she told me. I'm like, oh damn. So it's just like so she's like, oh, you best like read, go to therapy, and like talk to others that are more experienced or like know about it. Like you say, like seek professionals because like this is your first time on Earth, and I don't think you're gonna figure it all out.
Yep.
bars.
That's what she said. I'm like, yeah, I don't think you can figure it all out. I'm like, damn. All right. Like it's like what is it, like the hubris walking around thinking like you know what's best.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
just like, nah, you don't.
Okay, so before we wrap up, speaking of seeking professional
Oh,
advice,
yeah.
you advise people to seek out professional advice regarding special needs trusts. But before they do, would you mind just kind of highlighting, giving a brief overview of what exactly that it is? Because I think it's such a vital resource for those in the disability community with family. Um, yeah, let's talk about it. What is the Special Needs Trust?
Good. So let me actually break down what what we provide, which also includes um, using life insurance as a funding mechanism. So first, we not necessarily in this order, but we provide services around building income protection strategy. Why? Because if Christian depends on me 100% and I get cancer, I get a stroke or a car crash, I want to make sure that my income is not interrupted. Usually in employers, you have the short-term disability, long-term disability. Usually it's not enough. So this is something independent that a father or a mother would get to be able to either replace their income if something were to happen that they're disabled for a certain period of time, or get a lump sum of money based on the policy of the way it's structured. So we want to build that in short term, right? Because if something were to happen to you, again, you're a couple months or years out, you want to make sure that you don't get interrupted. Secondly, we also use there's something called the special needs trust, which I believe it's a very, very good way. Obviously, I'm not a lawyer. You would need to seek a lawyer, but a special needs trust is a way that you can structure it in a way that if you do have any type of assets or funds that you want to distribute, it wouldn't affect the child if they have any government benefits or they'll, they're any in any type of eligibility with funds, right? So that special needs trust has instructions that based on however you want to distribute it or what the instruction will be there, but it won't affect any type of government help that that child or loved one has. So in our case, what we do is there's a lot of parents that you or caregivers that can use real estate brokerage accounts, savings account to be able to fund a special needs trust. But for me as a father, I consider that good, but it still fluctuates, right? The real estate could fluctuate. Brokerage accounts can fluctuate. Savings, if you spend it, it fluctuates. So
Yeah.
if you have, yeah, so if you have a life insurance, in my case, a life insurance, as long as you pay the premiums, you know what's going to be disbursed if you pass away, and that will go directly to a special needs trust. And that usually you want to have that conversation with obviously the lawyer who is creating the trust, and you want to fund it with the policy. So it's very important for families to have that. Um, Also, there's long-term care, which we talked about. Hey, what if I need care later on? Usually that is a standalone coverage, or you can, depends on the person, depends on the situation. You can use a whole life and put it a rider of long-term care, but that is specifically for the parent. For the later years that they might need help, you want to start accumulating that cash to be able to basically support you when you need it the most. So obviously those are very high level. It not necessarily applies for everybody because this is not, one size fits all. But these are very high level explanations of each one, which I believe build a foundation, right? I don't do investments, I don't do Bitcoin or anything. My main
Hmm.
thing is just insurance and building that plan B that for us as special needs parents, we usually don't have a plan B, right? So that's basically it.
That's awesome summary. Wow.
Yeah, no, I agree. Yeah, it's just like again, like it's uncomfortable, but it's like
Yeah.
necessary because especially like the stress and like the uncertainty of taking care of someone with special needs, it's like you want to make sure
Yeah.
they're like everything's good. You know,
Yeah.
like all like every
And you
like,
too. And you too
Well,
as
and
a
I
parent.
think I think what it comes down to is like, I'm not a parent, obviously, but it would seem that, children are an investment. And, it's something you gotta put resources, time, effort into. So yeah, it makes sense to me.
Yep.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Well, damn, we
yeah.
covered a lot. That
That
was
was
like a
good.
whole uh therapy session slash webinar slash chill conversation.
All
No, for me,
all
it was
necessary.
no,
Yeah.
no. For me, it was a pleasure. Obviously, what these are conversations again. When you have, it's very hard to be a functioning parent while being exhausted, and I do
Mhm.
believe that this is a conversation that's not talked about a lot. So for me, it's been a pleasure being able to highlight this with you guys.
Likewise, man.
Well, I appreciate it, and I really hope like your words speak very true. They're very empathetic, and like I hope that this reaches multiple parents or multiple people that like maybe they'll start to process the idea like, oh, maybe I should see,
Yeah.
because it's like sometimes, like you said, people don't have outlets or people aren't really necessarily exposed to this stuff like 24/7.
Yeah.
Like who casually just like talks about these things
Yeah.
unless they're presented to someone
Right.
and like they have to like think about it,
Yeah.
you know.
And that's why we're here.
That's why we're here. Yeah.
All right, well, where can people find you, Michael? The autismvoyage.com, right?
Yep, there you're going to see the blogs. There you're going to be able to subscribe to the newsletter. We also have some resources there. We have the ebook. We have a letter of intent. We're working on, I would say, 10 other resources from transitioning to an adult, IEP meeting checklist, even for grandparents. So that's later on, but we're working on it right now. So whatever we can do to be a resource for parents, we are doing it.
Very good.
Awesome.
Okay.
Any other shout outs? Any no?
All good?
I'm good. I'm satisfied.
Hell yeah.
Me too.
All right, well, if you liked what we had to say today, please leave us that rating. A nice little review on Apple Podcasts is always appreciated, or YouTube comment, Spotify
Spotify? Yeah,
comments.
Spotify.
Be sure to share with your friends and family. Get this seen by the right people, the people
Yep.
that need to see it. And if you're not already, be sure to follow us on all the socials, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, TikTok, at The Disability Myth, all one word.
At the
And
what?
Disability Myth, The
Oh,
Disability Myth,
the disability.
The Disability Myth.
Oh,
Insert insert that one episode of SpongeBob where he's writing the essay, and it's just the.
the. That's what you mean when I write. Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah. All right, guys. Well, with that being said, peace and love, and may the force be with you.
Yeah.